Hi, I'm Debbie with Nixene Publishing here in the United States, and meeting again with Adrian Nixon, who is our editor-in-chief, coming to us from Yorkshire, England. Hi, Adrian. How are you doing today?
I'm very good, Debbie. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm looking forward to our topic because today I have a question for you.
Is graphene safe? Easy question, hard to answer. The main reason is I'm not being evasive. It's just that, as far as we can tell, yes, but all the results aren't in yet. So let's go and see what the graphene flagships say about this. So you're familiar with the graphene flagship, Debbie?
Yes, Kari Helt, and that's located in Sweden, right?
It's scattered all over Europe, yes. Yeah, there's part of it in Sweden and part of it in other countries as well. It's the billion-dollar European community's research project into graphene, basically, and funding lots of different things, including the NGI, the Geek, part-funded them. So everybody's connected with the graphene flagship in one way or another in Europe. They've actually they're a good place to start because if anybody knows about the health and safety of graphene, then these guys will. And they've actually commissioned a review of the research into the health and safety of graphene and related materials. So there's quite a lot of variance on all this, as we both know. But they've been looking at the impact on human health and the environment as well. This is part of the reason. It's an active area of research at the minute. Some themes are emerging, and if I take some quotes from the Graphene Flagship sponsored work, and the link is at the bottom of the screen, by the way. This is one of the key findings, is that the graphene materials are less cytotoxic when compared to carbon nanotubes, and graphene oxide is readily degradable by cells of the immune system. What that means is, it's comparing graphene against another technology, carbon nanotubes, which came out a few years ago. And there were some health and safety concerns about that. And it looks like graphene is much less of a toxicity problem compared to carbon nanotubes. And even now, as more research gets done on carbon nanotubes, we're finding that there's a lot less concerns than people originally thought there. The other thing is that graphene oxide and also few layer graphene can be degraded by our bodies, which is actually quite impressive. I didn't know that we could do that. So far, it doesn't seem to be very toxic. It can be degraded by our bodies. So that's a good sign. The other key finding from the report, and this is quite a big study. I've just extracted out the big headlines for us here. The big concern they have really is inhalation of very fine powders. And as they get into the body, they can pass through into the lungs, which is human pulmonary health. And they could harm the lungs or even get into the body and circulate round. Now, this isn't just graphene. This applies to pretty much any finely divided material or ultrafine particles. So it doesn't specifically apply to graphene. So as far as we can tell at the minute from Graphene Flagship, yes, there are some concerns that the full work hasn't been done and lots of different combinations of graphene with other materials still need to be checked. There's a lot of research going on, but for the moment, there aren't that many warning signs coming out. This is the actual paper I'm referring to.
That's good news. You know, it's I think it's like anything else when you've got to find out, wait and see, and continue to research to see how it is going to affect us in the long term. In the short term, it's good to know.
Yeah,
so
it's looking good so far. Obviously, we've got to be still careful and take the precautionary principle, which means fear the worst and prepare for it, but don't sort of run around in a panic thinking this stuff's going to kill you, because so far the evidence is it isn't. And I was talking with one of the senior researchers who we both know, Debbie, who I won't mention their name. He was saying that we've been researching graphene now, working with it in the labs for well over 10 years. Nobody's died from graphene yet or even got ill from it. So that's another sign that this is probably okay.
That's very good. So we're going to, so we're talking about how it's going to affect the body, and we've had some conversation about different graphene implants for cancer treatment. And so I wonder, how does that tie in with what we're talking about here?
Okay, interesting. The big problem, so we'll take two things. The big problem is graphene powders, and we're going to avoid breathing those in. But graphene, when it's in a composite form, or if it's in that CVD form, you know, the layered single atomic layer graphene, is in much bigger particles, and that's not going to circulate around the body, and that can be used and is being used already inside human tissue. So let's take two parts from that, Debbie. The first one is, how do we handle graphene powders? And this is a picture of some of the kit that's actually at the Geek. This is inside the Graphene Engineering Centre in Manchester. Here you can see the fume cupboards and the local ventilation system over. This thing here is a roll mill designed to grind graphene up very precisely into powders. And the fume hoods, sort of walk-in ones where you can run experiments with graphene powders, and they both go up into very sophisticated filtration systems. So all the tiny particles are captured and nothing gets out into the environment. So that's dealing with powders. However, once we've got those powders and put them into composites, or if we take in CVD graphene, then we can do something with them. There are signs that there's some really interesting work going. You alluded to graphene combating cancer in the body, and was it this particular one you were referring to, Debbie?
Yes, that's the one we had talked about in one of our previous videos. So
Yeah.
I was curious as how that fits into this topic.
Yeah, it's a good point. So what the researchers here are doing is they're using graphene as an electrically conductive material, and I'm not sure if this is CVD graphene or a very high graphene containing composite to be electrically conductive. I suspect it's probably CVD, but the researchers are being a little bit cagey about this. But we both know that they can implant graphene into the human body, into the brain here, and use it to project an electric field, which then stops cancer cells dividing. This is active research that's going on at the moment, and it's being funded by an institution or an agency called Innovate UK in the UK. So putting graphene inside the body is actually a fairly safe thing to do as far as these guys are concerned. And this is going through the official medical route. There's some work going on with research hospitals right now. So they're obviously convinced that graphene is safe to go in the body. It's just, we've got to just be careful of those powders. That's the main thing.
Sure, that makes sense. And when you said it's not just graphene, it's anything that's a small particle. I mean, I was thinking about when you're cooking and you even have powdered sugar. You have to be careful. You could choke on powdered sugar when you're eating something that's covered in it. So.
Yes, definitely. And also flour mills, things like that. I can remember when I was a chemist, I was being taught about the danger of powders. And years ago, and don't try this at home, anybody, but bakers used to get a load of dust flour on their hands and go and make a cloud of flour, and then stick a match into it and to make it go boom, to blow all the flies away. Very dangerous. This caused quite a few dust explosions. Graphene is carbon, so to get it finely divided enough, it will burn, and it could cause dust explosions too. So you need to be very careful. It doesn't matter if it's sugar, flour, graphene, anything containing carbon, if it will react and burn, when it's finely divided enough, it can cause problems. So be careful of the dust. But if we just come back to your first question, is graphene safe? We can't say for certain because all the individual tests haven't been done, but all the indications are at the minute, it looks okay. And personally speaking, I'm really comfortable working in this field, handling graphene, being sensible about it. I'm using all my training as well, but I don't work in a field which I consider to be of personal danger to me.
Well, that sounds like we've got a good overview, and it's a lot of wait and see, but we're good to go and move forward, especially with the biomedical research. That there's a lot of it going on around the world. So.
Yeah, we'll hear more about that.
Thank you, Adrian, and we'll see you for the next episode.
Pleasure as ever, Debbie.